So let me give you a little background before I dive into this nightmare that I'm currently living. A couple years ago, I got into urban exploration. A few buddies and I would explore the Twin Cities area for anything and everything abandoned. The sketchier, the better. Gray Cloud Island, old breweries, rundown factories, you name it. Drained tunnels beneath the cities and old farmhouses even. I loved seeing the way time reaches its fingers around creation after man had left. It was a fun weekend hobby, despite a run-in or two with some squatters. After a while, I began running a blog with photographs and details about my adventures. It got a pretty sizable following. It wasn't long before I received an email from what appeared to be a small monthly magazine that wanted me to do a section on urban exploration. They gave me a phone number and asked me to call them, as they said they'd love to use my work. They offered to negotiate a price for my exploration too. The magazine was called Gatherings. Seemed legitimate enough, even though I had never heard of them. The magazine seemed to revolve around travel, I think, but there didn't seem to be any overall theme to it. Loving the idea of getting paid to do my hobby, I gave them a call. "Hello?" I said. There was nothing for a few seconds before a lady responded. "Gatherings Magazine, how may I help you?" I told them why I had called and she responded. "Oh, perfect. We'd love to have you run an Urbex section on our page. All you'd have to do is find 1 or 2 spots a month. With that, we'd want lots of photos of the spot itself and the surrounding area, details of the place, and either an address or location of the spot. On top of that, feel free to write about your own personal experience at the spot." I asked them if they wanted a specific type of building or farmhouses, etc. The woman said, "Anything. It could be an old factory or a small house in a suburb, as long as it's been abandoned for a while." All right, seemed pretty cool, I thought. I didn't know how I felt about giving out so many details about spots I had found, since that's a prime way to get a spot noticed and closed off for good. "What's your offer for a rate?" I asked. She promptly replied, "5,000 per location." Jesus, there's no way she was serious. "Excuse me?" I replied. "Just send us the location and you'll receive your payment in the mail for each location," she stated. Why the hell not, I thought. "I'm in," I said. "Wonderful. Whenever you're ready, just send in your first spot and you'll be receiving your first check shortly after that." She hung up immediately after saying that. Well, now it was up to me to find a spot, record the details, take some photos, and send it all in. The next weekend, I went to a small farmhouse I had found before, but I never blogged about it. A sort of hidden gem among locations. I'm not going to give out very many details here, but it was somewhere several miles north of White Bear Lake, down a long, winding dirt road. I arrived there later in the evening before the sun had set, took the photos, recorded the exact location of the place, and jotted down some descriptions of the location itself. How many windows it had, the color of the house itself, if it had a basement, the amount of rooms, etc. I sent all the information in via email, and I didn't receive a reply. To be honest, I was kind of disappointed, figuring I probably fell for some sort of scam. However, a few days later, I went to check my mail and I found an envelope with the Gatherings logo on it. I opened it, and there it was. $5,000 in cash. I'm pretty sure my heart skipped a beat when I saw that cash. A small note inside the envelope read, "Thank you for your submission. We were grateful to receive it. This gift is the first of many in our partnership. With regards, Gatherings Magazine." I immediately planned my next trip. I was going to hit some tunnels under Minneapolis that I blogged about before, however this time a bit more extensively. I did the same thing, photos, locations, details, and sent them all in. A few days later in the mail I received an envelope with my cash. This time there was a different note, however, which read, "Thank you for your submission. However, We would like to clarify that you are under no circumstances to submit to us any locations which you have previously made public. We apologize for not clarifying this earlier. With regards, Gatherings Magazine. Well, that was odd, I thought. I guess they want originality, to be the first ones to write about these locations. The note had a weird, hostile vibe to it, and lacked the watermark that the other note had. Well, either way, I still got my money and I planned on getting more. I needed to find some new spots quickly. Every weekend I was out searching, the farther out of my way I had to go. Luckily, I was compensated for my extended travels. I also noted that the more remote the location, the more money I was paid as well. But the money generally stayed between $5,000 and $8,000 per location. This went on for a few months before I decided I needed to take a break. I emailed them letting them know I was going to slow down a little for a few months. They seemed to have no issues with it. About a month after that, a buddy of mine wanted to get into my little hobby. No one at this point knew I was making any money doing these explorations. So I decided to take him to that little farmhouse for my very first submission as sort of a exhibition. I knew I couldn't send them a location I had already been to before, so I just went back for the fun of it. We went out on a Saturday morning together. We parked a short ways down the dirt road and walked the rest of the way to the farmhouse. The farmhouse itself appears small from the outside, and its paint was worn to a dingy brown. It's actually quite hard to spot if you're not actually looking for it. Inside the house is empty, aside for a cellar door which leads to a quite sizable basement. In the basement, there are a few doors and some old wooden tables. When I was down there before, I saw that all the doors just led to empty closets. As we passed by the barn, the first thing my friend noticed was an odd smell. After he mentioned it, I began to detect it as well. It smelled like a mixture of burnt hair and skunk. Or maybe it was just the dankest weed on the planet. I guess this could be a pretty cool smoke spot if it weren't so sketchy. At the entrance of the farmhouse was, well, a skunk. However, it looked as if it had been disemboweled by some pissed off animal. It seemed to be old too, like it had been there for a few weeks. It reeked. I poked it aside with a stick and we entered the house. The smell grew stronger inside. We both turned to one another and he asked me if it had smelled like this the last time. God, no, I replied. We walked around for a bit, going into the rooms one by one. In one of the rooms, we found some action figures sitting on a windowsill. They were pretty retro, but still kind of cool. However, I didn't really remember them from last time. We then decided to enter the cellar. We opened the door and entered the unlit area. I fished my flashlight out of my backpack. I turned it on and most of the cellar lit up. What I saw made me step back. Blood was smeared across every wall in the cellar. Flies buzzed to and fro across the room in a disturbing, continuous hum. There were drawings on the floor, with odd shapes and numerals. Melted candle wax stained the ground. In the center of the room was what appeared to be bloody bits of flesh, coagulating into the ground. The smell punched me in the face like a heavyweight boxer, almost causing me to collapse. In my disorientation, instead of running back the way I came out, I accidentally ran to one of the storage doors, but it was locked. Panicking, I gripped the doorknob and struggled against it. Finally, something clicked, and I felt the door knocking me backwards. I fell back on my ass as I watched what had to be 4 or 5 bodies plunged out from the closet. I just stared for a moment, no doubt in shock. I remember they were all adult bodies, save for one, clearly a child. There was one who fell forward almost completely on top of me. His chest was opened up, cut from the neck just to above his pelvis. It almost looked like a surgical cut, in contrast to the blood and viscera strewn about the room. I gathered myself and noticed that my friend had already ran out of the room. I scrambled to my feet and ran outside, gasping for air. He just stared at me in horrific confusion before he said, "What the hell, man?" We didn't really speak to each other for the rest of the day. I don't know if he thought I did that to him on purpose or as a prank, but he was visibly shaken. Hell, I was too. At first, I was hesitant to call the police. What the hell are they going to think about me being there? The only guy who knew about the location. So I decided to leave an anonymous tip after my friend and I had already left. A week passed after that incident, and I received a new letter in the mail. This one read, "We respectfully ask that under no circumstances do you ever return to any of the locations you have submitted to us. We apologize for the inconvenience. The police have been spotted." I think I'm done submitting any more locations. I'm going to take the money I earned, move out of the city, and not look back. If any of you out there are into urban exploration, be very careful out there. You never know what you might find, or who might be watching you.